Introducing YouTube memberships, a fun way to support the channel while getting some exclusive perks. Click the join button to become a member now and get benefits like badges next to your name on videos, behind-the-scenes photos, advantages during the live trivia game, discounts on merchandise, private one-on-one video chats, the ability to request future video topics, and exclusive 8 to 10 minute videos on the history of the NFL. And now, on with our feature presentation. November 9th, 2023. It's week 10 of the NFL season, and we've got a Thursday Night Football battle on our hands in the NFC between the Carolina Panthers and the Chicago Bears up at Soldier Field. This game is absolutely monumental for both of these teams, as this is, by far, the biggest Thursday Night Football game taking place during week 10 of the 2023 NFL season. Both teams need this win, along with a couple of meteor strikes, to make the playoffs. So to say that this was a game of football would be putting it lightly, as all across the country, tens of fans were excited to watch this one unfold in front of a national audience on Amazon. As for how this game turned out, was it any good? Oh god no, this game was so sloppy, and you can absolutely see why both of these teams and coaches are going nowhere this year. But was this game close? Yes. Yes, it was. At the very least, it was competitive, which is more than I can say about a ton of primetime games this year. And with 2 minutes left in the contest, the Panthers, who are looking for their second win of the season, were driving down the field down by 3 points with 2 minutes left. They took their sweet time getting to this point on a drive that chewed up a ton of time, and where they were huddling, even though they probably needed to get into field goal range before doing that, so that if it didn't work out, they'd have that de facto fourth timeout with a 2-point conversion. But regardless, the Panthers find themselves in a decent spot. They have 1st and 10 at the 41-yard line, so if they could get a couple of more yards here, they would be in field goal range and would tie this bad boy up. 1st down, and they call a passing play past the sticks. It falls incomplete. Man, Bryce Young has to hit that throw. I mean, the man is wide open. That gets you into field goal range right there. Whatever. 2nd down, and oh, they're taking a deep shot down the field. Not sure I agree with that at all. Don't you want to try and get some yards to get into field goal range and make this a makeable kick for your kicker? Not a single run or short pass or anything like that? I'm confused, but okay. You've got your methods. You've got your way of doing things. I'm not going to judge.
Carolina's going to take a timeout just to get resettled here. Clearly you're in a situation.
Okay, now I'm going to judge. You call the timeout? With the clock stopped? You do realize now that if you don't get the 1st down, this game is over, right? Before, you at least had a shot even if you didn't get the 1st. But now, as if you couldn't bungle this situation anymore, you found a way. Oh man, did you find a way. Maybe it'll be a moot point with this 3rd down play, and nope. Alright, 3 straight passes for the quarterback who is completing less than 50% of his passes at one point in this game, and all 3 falling complete. Well, now it's 4th and 10. You've got to go for it. You've got no choice. It's too far of a kick for a kicker who's never come close to making a 59-yard kick in his career. It's too far of a kick for a man who's kicked in this stadium many times before and never came close to reaching from there. It's too far of a kick considering all the circumstances, from cold weather, to the wind, to a weak-legged kicker, to bad grass, to a notoriously tough stadium where no one, not one person, has ever made a kick longer than this distance before. So it all comes down to this 4th down conversion play. Let's see what the Panthers have in store for us here. You're kicking the field goal in Chicago when the man has never made a kick longer than 56 in his life, when the Soldier Field record is 59 yards, when you have 4th and doable, when you could have prevented this by getting closer, when your kicker missed short earlier in the season from a much closer distance. You're kicking the field goal. You're kicking the field goal!
Eddy Pineiro. Pineiro's kick is no good.
Welcome to Dumb Decisions. Before I break down what happened here, this whole series is about taking an in-depth look at decisions made during games that were clearly awful from the start. This isn't something to look bad in hindsight. Rather, this is something to look awful almost immediately. These are moves where your gut instinct tells you right away that there is no way this can possibly work. And sure enough, your gut instinct was smarter than that of an NFL head coach. And for this one, we're taking a look at the mind of Carolina Panthers head coach Frank Reich. You know, there's a very real chance that every single coach in the NFC South could get fired at the end of the season. And I didn't think that was possible, especially since you just got here. But man, you absolutely stink. This is not working out at all. Heck, I could have told you that after how disastrous his stint was at the end with the Indianapolis Colts, where he was making boneheaded decision after boneheaded decision, including my personal favorite, a field goal attempt with 2 minutes left, down by 7 points, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. But between the stagnation of Bryce Young, if anything, the regression of Bryce Young, the awful coaching with decisions like this, and the fact that the Panthers have the worst record in football, this might be a painful one and done, because this absolutely atrocious decision highlights just how awful his tenure with the Panthers has been thus far, and we're only 9 games into this mess. So with that being said, let's take a look at why kicking a 59-yard field goal in this situation, when there was not a chance in the world that your kicker could reach from there, is a really bad idea. And before I even do that, we have to focus on 2 things before this kick that made this decision a million times worse. Number 1, by trying a 59-yard field goal, you were telling your team that you were fine playing for 3 points, and were fine playing for the tie to force overtime. I have no problem with that. But if you're doing that, and you know that you're fine with a field goal here, then why are you calling 3 intermediate and deep passes on the first 3 downs? Why would you not try something quick, or try a run, or something along those lines, just to get into a more makeable field goal range? So you're trying for the deep shot when your offensive line has given you no protection, and when you've hit on just 1 pass down the field like that all game, knowing that if you don't convert one of those 3, you're not going for it, and instead, you're going to try the field goal anyways? But perhaps more egregious than that was the abysmal timeout taken after 2nd down with 15 seconds on the play clock while the clock was stopped. Why would you do that? Why would you give yourself no room for error? Timeouts are an extremely valuable currency, especially when you're losing. You already mismanaged the clock by taking way too long on that final drive and by giving yourself a 4th down situation at the 2-minute warning, thereby making it so that you wouldn't have that de facto 4th timeout if you didn't get it. And now, you're going to burn a timeout on a stop clock when the original line of scrimmage didn't even move? If you save the timeout, you have room for error. If you don't get the field goal or the 1st down or anything along those lines, you still have time to get the ball back and do something. But by calling a timeout, for no reason at all, you made this drive the game. You, for no reason at all, put the pressure on, even though scoring was by no means a guarantee or anything close to it. If you don't call a timeout and you give it back to the Bears, if you get a stop, you're getting it back with about 1:15 left on the clock, which is time to work with. If you do call a timeout and give it back to the Bears, in the absolute best case scenario, if you get a stop and force a 3 and out, you have to drive the length of the field with 30 seconds with one of the worst offenses, especially down the field, in all of football. You've lost the game. For all intents and purposes, you've lost the game. So again, why you would call these plays and why you would burn this timeout, I don't know. And that's all before we even get to the meat and potatoes of the story, which is the field goal attempt. Holy cow, the field goal attempt. Let's think about your options here. Option 1 is to go for it on 4th and 10. Admittedly, not the best option in the world, especially with a struggling quarterback, which once again raises the question about the play calling over the first 3 plays of the sequence, but I digress. Still, even though it's not a super high probability play, seeing as you already converted multiple 4th downs on the drive and in this game, and seeing as 10 yards is absolutely attainable, you can do it. I would still put my money on the Bears to get a stop, but if you're the Panthers, you can pick up 10 yards, get the first down, and then in the worst case scenario, be set up on the next sequence for a makeable field goal attempt to tie the game. There's at least a fighting chance. But you know what has a 0.0% chance at working? Kicking the freaking 59-yard field goal! This is shades of the Broncos-Seahawks Monday night game from last year all over again, where no one knew what the heck Nathaniel Hackett was thinking with the sequence of plays, his clock management, his timeout management, and then his idiotic kick. You can learn more about that by clicking the card in the upper right corner. For one, Eddy Pineiro does not have a strong leg. Not at all. The longest kick in his entire career prior to this game was 56 yards, and he made just one kick from longer than 54 in his career. The man even played in Chicago, and the longest he tried there was 53. Now you're asking him, for no reason at all, to try a kick 3 yards longer than his career long, meaning that for this play to work, he would have to set a career high. But it gets even worse, because this kick is taking place in Soldier Field in Chicago, which is by far the toughest stadium in football to kick long distances in. Want to know the number of kickers to make a field goal from longer than 59 yards at Soldier Field? 0, zilch, nada, zip. No one, not a single kicker, has made a field goal longer than 59. Heck, Matt Prater is the only one to ever make a field goal from 59 yards at Soldier Field. And the Bears have been playing in Chicago for over a century. It's not like you're asking Pineiro to try this at Mile High. You're asking him to try this at the toughest environment for a kicker from a distance like this, period. It's like trying to drive the green on a 300-yard par 4 when it's downhill and nothing but fairway, versus trying to drive the green on a 300-yard par 4 when it's uphill and the entire area surrounding the green is a water track. Soldier Field is that latter scenario. It is just about impossible to make a kick like this, and the Panthers should know that, seeing as they literally got the man from Chicago. And the man they were asking to do this is not Justin Tucker or someone with the cannon of a leg. It's Eddy freaking Pineiro, who has no leg strength to speak of. Remember this kick from earlier in the season against the Seattle Seahawks? This missed short from 55 yards. Good weather, temperature in the 60s, and he missed from 55 well short. The kick you're asking him to try here, instead of a 4th and 10, was 4 yards longer than that in significantly colder temperatures where kicking the ball is sort of like kicking a rock. Because that makes perfect sense. Instead of 10 yards to keep the game alive, you're relying on a scenario where your kicker, who has never made a kick from that distance in his life, nor has he ever shown anything to suggest that he could hit such a kick, has to destroy his career high in longest kick, but has to do so in cold weather in a stadium where a kick like this has never been made before. This is like drawing up a play in basketball for a man who has never made a three-pointer, and the shot is from 40 feet out. But on top of that, the game is outside in the cold on a windy day. And on top of that, defenders are allowed to make contact with the shooter, because this is some bizarro version of basketball. Like, that's how illogical this kick was. He has to set his own record that he never came close to hitting, and do it under impossible conditions. And because of your atrocious clock management, timeout management, and play calling, not only was the kick not easier, but the kick was the end of the game, as you gave yourself no room for error. Truly astounding how badly Frank Reich messed that up. And after the game, Reich was understandably asked about the decision. And his explanation was, shall we say, very confusing. As Reich said, it was a tough decision. There were mixed opinions on what we should do. That's my call. I've seen us make 60-yarders in practice. Felt like there was a little bit of breeze at our back. If you just look at the pure percentages, I think the pure percentage play is to kick it. But Frank, here's what you don't understand. Number one, analytics don't work like that. You can't just look at things in a vacuum like that with pure percentages. If this game was being played in a stadium with high altitude, that's not right on the water where the ball travels far, or you have a kicker with even average leg strength, the percentages might suggest that. But none of that applied here. If anything, the percentage said to go for it. So you use numbers and analytics as a defense, while the numbers in actuality said something completely different. It's almost like if I said that I don't trust what experts have to say about the Earth because they were wrong about the Earth being round, because it's actually flat. Like, your logic is all wrong, and it says the exact opposite. It said 30% to go for it, and 20% to kick with an average kicker, not one of the weakest-legged kickers in football. So the calculation is still wrong. Number 2, this doesn't even take into account the best case and the worst case scenario of both options. Let's say you go for it. If you don't get it, the Bears get the ball at the 41-yard line, assuming the pass falls incomplete. If you do get it, you have a chance at winning the game, which is something you didn't have if the field goal was good, because that would only be a tie, and the Bears would have time to do something of their own and drive down the field, versus going for it and making it, where you can assure yourself that you will either have the lead, or that the Bears will not touch the ball before the overtime period. The field goal does not give you a chance to win right then and there. It has worse odds than going for it, and it allows the Bears to potentially drive down the field themselves, thereby negating the effects of the kick in the first place. And again, I'm not saying that they should have gone for it no matter what. If this was a 50-yard field goal versus 4th and 10, obviously kick the field goal. But here, there was nothing about that justification with the percentages that made any sense when you break it down like that. And number 3, your justification for this wasn't anything you saw in warm-ups before the game, or anything along those lines. Your justification was that you saw him make a 60-yarder in practice? You saw him make a kick 1 yard longer than this in a no-pressure situation, with significantly warmer weather and significantly better conditions to kick a field goal in due to how far the ball travels, and said, yep, that's good enough for me. Seriously? That's your logic? That's like saying you trusted your hitter, who has 1 career home run, to hit a home run at Comerica Park in Detroit in 20-degree weather because you saw him hit a ball just over the fence into the first row at Coors Field. You get why this doesn't make sense. Nothing about this entire situation, from the play calls that led up to this, to the timeout that hindered your chances for no reason, to the actual kick itself, to the explanation, makes any sense. And what we got in front of a national television audience was, no joke, one of the dumbest decisions of the entire season. This is not the first time I've done an episode of Dumb Decisions on Frank Reich, and in all likelihood, it will not be the last. Aside from the video I made about the field goal down by 7 points with 2 minutes left against the Titans, I also did a video while he was the coach of the Colts about a disastrous sequence in a game against the Patriots, which ultimately led to him getting fired the very next day. You can learn more about that by clicking the card in the upper right corner. Frank Reich got a second chance, and safe to say, after what we saw this season, and especially in the game between these two teams behind me right here, he is not taking advantage of it at all. He is blowing this opportunity. Heads have to roll in Carolina. The trades have been bad. The draft picks have been bad. The coaching has been bad. The management has been bad. The ownership has been bad. Literally, every single thing in Carolina has been bad. And if any coach deserves to be one and done this season, it's Frank freaking Reich, because that was a disgrace. So what do we learn from all of this? Other than the fact that putting the Carolina Panthers on in prime time against the Chicago Bears is a really bad idea. Don't waste a timeout when you don't have to and you're losing. Don't make life as difficult as possible for your kicker by setting up for a super long field goal attempt when that doesn't have to be the case. Don't make a drive the last-ditch effort if it doesn't have to be. And when it comes to the kick itself, if your kicker can't make a kick from a certain distance, then guess what? Don't have him try a kick from that distance. It's like asking an 8-year-old to dunk. No matter how hard he tries, he won't be able to dunk, because it's not physically possible. If your kicker has never hit a 59-yarder in his career, has never even come close to hitting a 59-yarder in his career, and is going into a stadium where it is historically impossible to hit 59-yard field goals because of how it plays and how it is situated, then don't be surprised when he cannot hit the 59-yard field goal. Because if you have two options, and one option has a slight chance at working, and the second option has a 0% chance at working, and you don't take the option that at least gives you somewhat of a fighting chance, then you deserve to be canned. Plain and simple. Even your own kicker was in disbelief that you had him try it, which tells you everything you need to know. Because when all of these elements are in play, you can't exactly be surprised when this play backfires. Talk about a dumb decision. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.